Okay, Johnny. In part one, you talked about you spoke to your mate that about going out yourself as a bookmaker. You started doing the hard yards bookmaking at dog tracks, point to points, and at the end of the line in poor pitches. Now, you must have had an edge to survive because you couldn't rely on the figures or a turnover where you used to bet, surely.
Yeah, well, I started at the dogs in Yall, that's where I'm from, and like there was very little expenses and that, you know what I mean? So, um, look, that time, Simon, to me, bookmaking was very much and against punters. It was the blind against the blinder, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Nobody, there was no guys with huge edges there. Like the Betfair was a huge educator for people. But I started at say the dogs. I did the points of a Sunday, and then I started to go into the maybe betting at the end of the line uh, at the race meetings. And you wouldn't get on every day. You wouldn't. There's lots of times you wouldn't get on at all, and you'd get on every day nowadays, all right. But at that time you wouldn't get on, and you kind of had to hope you'd get on at the end of the line. But I would go to. I kind of made the decision that I wouldn't bet in every race when I was making the book. I'd pick the ones I wanted to lay, and pick the races I want to get involved in, and duck the other ones. And if it meant driving 3 hours to go 11 to 10 and even money chance and take my few quid out of it, that's what we used to do. And if one win or lose, we'd go into the car and go home, that kind of thing. If there were races, there were plenty of races where I just wouldn't get involved in them because I didn't think I didn't see any benefit in getting involved in it, whereas other guys couldn't wait to get involved in every single race. I found that worked for me anyway. That worked for me for a period, obviously, for a period of 10 or 15 years. That kind of stuff worked for you. Now, saying that, if you sometimes after a while, if you started getting those races right, if you started going 5 to 4 and 11 to 10 or 6 to 5 chance and getting them beat, it became noticed, and suddenly you kind of became the victim of your own success, if you know what I mean. You kind of had to move it around in so far as if at the finish, fellas would be half afraid to bet with you because they thought you knew something. It was most of the time it was only an opinion, and a lot of the time it used to be wrong. But at the finish, I used to find that I'd have to get other people to lay the favourites for me, and maybe me go even money the 11 to 10 chance and let someone else down the line go 5 to 4 and let him fill the bag for me, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah. So, but I mean, doing it that way, you still would have, even though you said you were wrong a lot of the time, you would have had to be right more of the time to have made it pay doing it that way. So, were you sort of head stuck in the form book, or were you getting good marks, or was it a mixture of the two? How were
Oh,
you
look,
keeping your head in front?
it was a whole cocktail of a load of stuff. It was marks, it was farm book, it was it was hunches. It was like you depose certain stables, certain jockeys in different races, and that kind of a thing. Look, if you had a few punters to it, I had a few punters. If you got them on the run, you could get money off them. You know what I mean? At that time, like those punters probably don't really exist much anymore, but there was a few punters around in those days, and you need punters to get started in this game, and and another thing you need a lot of luck in this game. You need to come like I kind of arrived at the right time in bookmaking when there was the Celtic Tiger or whatever you like to call it was starting to come, and there was big money swirling around. Like you could go down to the end of the line, like I don't know what to speak figures around it, but you could get 5 figures out of a horse at the end of the line in Navan, and if you wanted it, and an even money chance, you could be down in 100 yards away from where the action was happening. But sure, if you were there now, you would I mean there wouldn't be a bookie within 100 yards of you, that kind of way. But those days, you had a chance of, but you needed to be right. You did. You needed to be right, exactly. And but saying that when I started off with the dogs, you'd have plenty of guys would bet. They'd have 10 bets a night or 8 bets a night, whatever. At the finish, when I went to the dogs years later, they would have one bet every 2 weeks. So that whole thing changed as well. The punters became more clever, more selective as well, and the business dried up, the turnover went down. A lot of things happened bookmaking, I think, anyway. But no, the punters are harder to beat nowadays than they were 25 years ago. That was the big thing in my favour. They were harder to beat. now than when I was my business was growing as a bookie.
Well, that's you back in 25 years ago. There
Yeah.
wouldn't have been people like you in the sport of life of the Racing Post, educating people how to bet, would there? You'd have had tips. You'd have had Auger and the Man on the Spot in the sport of life. But
Yeah,
there's a
yeah.
lot
That
more education for punters from successful people like yourselves these days.
but Simon, the information is there for them just by clicking buttons now and getting on and having a look at stuff and having a look at the form of even the fact that you can watch replays is fantastic. You know what I mean? You know that even that's something that you've missed. Even if you're at the races nowadays, you can have a quick look at the horse's last run just to refresh your mind that what you actually saw on that day was what actually happened. Because sometimes it's not. You'd be surprised that I'd often get an impression of a horse saying, he faded or he didn't finish great, and then you look at the race again and saying, to be honest, he didn't do that at all. I mean, by those type of things, they're all little edges that the punters get. Plus, a big edge the punter has is the punter can bet in any race they like, where the bookies are putting their neck on the line in every single contest as such. You know what I mean? They're putting their head out there, whereas a bookie can stand or a punter can stand back and say, look, I'm going to give every race a skip until the last race or whatever, and then I'm going to have a go in that one. You know that kind of way?
Yeah, now everybody knows sort of about the really sharp punters like Barney Curley, but
Yeah.
how many punters that would bet with you regularly on the race course would beat you back in the days before Betfair?
Um, would beat you. Only a couple, but if they beat you, you kind of started to merge forces with them, if you know what I'm saying. You didn't leave them beat you on a continual basis. If they did beat you, you kind of got friendly with them or whatever, shared stuff with them so that they didn't come near you anymore. More than get rid of them. If you know what I'm saying, you wouldn't fall out with them or anything like that. You'd say, look, or like a lot of the guys, the bigger layers at the time were bookies. Do you know what I'm saying? So basically, what happened was, if one fella came in and would beat me for one, he probably wouldn't want me reciprocating the business following day either. So eventually, we'd probably become friends in that. Do you know what I mean? And say, look, you deal me out in future, and I'll deal you out, and we'll share notes, that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? I,
Yeah,
I remember one man met with me, like great best punter of all time that I ever came across was Charles Burns, and he come into me one day in Punchestown, and he backed this horse with me in a maiden hurdle. I'll give it no chance anyway. Anyway, it was 8-1, so he backed it each way, and I said I stuck it in the bag. I took a chance anyway, so I said it won't win anyway. So, but it might maybe it'll be placed, but and I won't be doing any more. So he came back in again at 6. And he said, "You want to lay it again each way?" And I said, "I will. Go on, I'll chance it." So it bolted in anyway. I won half the track anyway, right? So I just said before the rest of the guys that were with me, I said, like, if this wins anyway, I'll pack it in. You know what I mean? But when it won, I knew this man was too good for me. Do you know what I mean? So I said I came and met him and I said, look, I ain't going to play you anymore. You're just too good. But I can help you doing the bits and pieces. And I got a real bit of a relationship with him. And even still to this day, I'm friendly with him. You know what I mean? But we put on for him for a while, put on for other people as well. But look, it's a kind of a case, Simon, if you can't beat him, join him. You know what I mean?
yeah. So when you said early doors your success was your worst enemy, in actual fact, it turned around that your success drew in the other sharp punters and added to your network.
Yeah, like if you're laying decent bets, you're going to attract people that know what they're doing. Do you know what I mean? And it's all a question of handling them the best way you can without them causing you too much damage. Do you know that kind of way? But I'd lay big bets to people that knew what they were doing, but then you could maybe dump them, or you sometimes you take your chances. But I would have also laid big bets to people that I did not think knew what they were doing as well. You know what I mean? And I suppose they're the guys that you'd be hoping to get a hold of, and there aren't many of them around. But I had one or two fellas that weren't as sharp as they should be in relation to the units they were betting in.
Yeah, no, I heard a wonderful story. I hope it's true. I was told that Ladbroke sent somebody to Court Racecourse to shorten one up, and you didn't fancy it, and you totally just stood there and laid it and laid it and laid it and laid it, and you were right and they were wrong. I mean, but that sort of thing happened quite a lot, especially with the trade money.
Yeah, look, yeah, I suppose so. Yeah, another thing as well, like if it was somewhere like Cork, I can't remember the instance you're talking about, but it probably did happen. But if I was dealing with a couple of other friends of mine who were dealing in the same kind of units and figures and do the same thing, he could be in Fairy House, and we might not fancy this horse, and it would be a case of me taking it on in Cork, but we were going halves. Maybe that could have been the situation. You know what I mean? So it would have been twice as strong, if you know what I'm saying. It could be I could be laying it from myself and a friend of mine as well at the same time. Do you know that kind of way? Because there wouldn't have been maybe no access to exchanges even at a stage like that. So if they were coming for one, it'd be manna from heaven for us. Because I could be laying it from maybe two people or maybe three people at times. Who knows? You know.
When you,
It may not have been all my own money. That's all I'm saying. On that particular day, I don't know. I can't remember now, to be honest.
it's one of those folklore ones that. Was there a moment when you an exact moment you can remember where you thought that's it now for the on course bookmaking? Was there something that just decided you?
Yeah, I'll tell you exactly. It was a summer of, I think it was like 12. I'd say it could be 10 or 11 years ago. Um, oh look, I was starting to lose, and look, it's a great game when it's winning, when you're winning, and it's not so nice when you're losing. It's the same with every game, really. But um, the summer, I was having a baddish run, and then I went, I think, about 3 months without winning at a meeting. Like this is going 4 and 5 days a week, and it went from maybe the start of July till the Arc Day in October, the first Sunday in October. I went to Tipperary, and at the end of the previous month, I was just trying to minimize the damage. I was like I couldn't turn the tap off really. I couldn't stop losing, and I was say 3 months without winning a day, and I just said to myself, look, this isn't a bad run. Like this is not going to stop. Like I never ever had a run like this. It was you get bad runs, all right, but you'd never get a 3 month run without winning a day. I said like if I don't get out of this game, I'll finish up on the side of the road. So I made a conscious decision on that day. There was a meeting there on the Tuesday as well in Tipperary 2 days later, and I just said to myself, I'm finished with this. If I don't get out of this soon, it's going to. I'd finish up with absolutely nothing. And I just said with the guys who work for me, I said, we're done. We're done. So I sold my pitches. I didn't get a lot for them. I got a percentage of what I paid from, but I was happy to get out. And it was actually the best decision I ever made, to be honest, because it freed up a lot of time for me. That the traveling was becoming a headache. But now you had to put up with all those things if you were winning. But on top of like losing, on top of all the on top of all the like the negative side of the game, I had enough. But I could not see it ever turning around for me anyway, Simon, because as a gambling bookie, you were getting picked off day after day, and there was no business there either. The business had collapsed in a very short space of time, and for the only way I could have stayed going was if I had decided to go back betting small as a bookie, really small, and fiddling around. But it was very hard to do that if I still wanted to bet horses to a bigger level. You know what I mean? So it made the bookmaking side of it pointless if I was going, like, it wasn't much point in going to the races for 5 days and winning and losing it all in one bet in a horse and first race in Newton Abbott. Like, do you know what I mean? So I decided to cut to get out of it. And to be fair, it was I don't regret it either. And it allowed me more time at home, freed up more time to raise my kids properly and all that. Do you know what I mean? So like one time we were away 5 and 6 nights a week, and like I'd never be home, like, you know what I mean, and you didn't get to see your kids grow up and properly, really, you know what I mean, and you were leaving too much in the hands of your wife as well, that she was going to be up the walls trying to look after them, and that, like, doing what I was doing early on, we used to go we gone 7 days a week. And maybe home only 2 nights a week, and you go to England if there was no racing on in Ireland, all that kind of stuff, like, you know what I mean. So this way it allowed me like stay at home a lot more. I started go to, then I give up. I hardly ever go to the races nowadays. I found that there was no edge going to the races anymore. The traveling and all that was like, you get old as well, and you get older, and those things start to take a toll. Whereas when you're young, they don't bother you in the slightest.